but I've also worked on developing interventions for that might help optimize functioning for people who aren't experiencing any mental health symptoms necessarily. So for example, for students transitioning to college, and then helping out with developing this programming. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Dr. Namik. I'm an associate investigator at the Laureate Institute for Brain Research. And let's see, so a particular focus of mine and interest is in exposure to early life stress and childhood maltreatment in teens and development of resilience interventions for this population.
I'm Kerr. I'm a research associate at OSU, but I've worked, I'm a clinical psychologist as well, and I've worked with Robin and Namik on their resilience clinical interventions and trainings.
And just to summarize really quickly, we always try to do this at the beginning of each of these sessions, that this is not meant for a treatment for any mental health disorder. This is just meant to provide skills that can potentially be helpful in terms of enhancing general kind of well-being for healthcare workers that are facing a lot of stress due to the pandemic. So if you need referrals for additional services, please do not hesitate to contact us. On the screen, we do have some numbers, to call if anyone's experiencing any kind of emergency symptoms, including calling the COPES hotline. And we also just want to remind people we don't necessarily guarantee confidentiality given the group video conferencing, but so if someone does talk and ask questions, which we do encourage you to do if you're comfortable with that, but know that we are recording it, and so then that would be part of the recording. Anything that's in the chat would not be part of the recording, so please feel free to chat us questions too. If you don't want to ask questions out loud, we can definitely respond to anything in the chat as well. So I think that's it for that part. Just to introduce this session really quick, I don't know if Namik yet, you want to go? Yeah, that works. So just remind you that the COVID Hero program that we created, we did kind of an introduction session several weeks ago, kind of talking about what the purpose of this program is for, and which is mainly to try to support healthcare workers that might be dealing with a lot of increased levels of stress during the pandemic. And the idea with this is, because we don't necessarily see a pandemic being the optimal time to try to take on everything necessarily and try to enhance your skills across the board, but trying to identify priorities for yourself in terms of the specific areas where you do think boosting your skills might be helpful. So some people might want to engage in all of these sessions, but for others, they might want to pick one or two that they feel like they really want to focus on. And so we have 5 different sessions focused on different skills. Today, we're focusing on enhancing positive emotions and creating meaning from experiences. And we'll have either videos or be doing additional sessions for the others as well. I think that's it. Is there anything else I missed?
Nope.
Okay. You guys want me to keep going, or you guys want anybody else want to do it? Yeah. Okay. I'll keep going. So with this first slide, I like to kind of give an idea of kind of the idea of the different ways in which we can respond to major stressors in our life. So the idea is that we all are kind of going along in a way in which our bodies and our brains are trying to keep a homeostasis or a balance. So, we can think about this in terms of balance in hormone levels or electrolytes or, whatever it is, physiologically trying to keep a homeostasis, but also psychologically trying to keep a homeostasis. Kind of an area in which we're kind of comfortable and things are kind of going as we expect them to be and are very balanced. When we do experience stressors or different life events, those things threaten that homeostasis and try to and try to throw us off, both physiologically as well as just mentally. And we have a lot of protective factors that we use to try to maintain that homeostasis despite those stressors. So that might be relying on social connections or using different things that we enjoy doing, or different strategies we might have for regulating emotions. But with COVID, there are a lot of protective factors we might be used to relying on that we can't use as much anymore, or at least that we can't use in the same way as we used to use. So for example, with social connections, we might not be able to just go, in the evenings and grab a coffee or a drink with a friend to kind of vent, or, kind of just de-stress from the day. There might be more positive experiences that we might have at work, especially as healthcare workers. There might be more kind of positive experiences throughout the day than during the thick of a pandemic, for example, like I got when it was in New York City, where they, kind of dealing with just, stressors the whole entire day rather than having it broken up by more positive experiences. So there might be a number of things that kind of disrupt those protective factors. And so when stressors overload the protective factors that we have, it can lead to a disruption in that homeostasis. And then our body responds and our mind responds in a way to try to get us back to that homeostasis. But there can be different ways that we do that. So one may be reliance on unhelpful coping behaviors. So that might be like using alcohol or other drugs or other kind of coping behaviors that aren't very helpful. Anger, or or overeating, or anything that kind of might just not be as useful for us. We also might respond in a way that we still have reduced functioning, but we kind of at least are kind of moving along and functioning at least at some level in a positive way. But we might just be kind of gritting our teeth and bearing it, kind of just pushing through, rather than feeling like we're actually have a positive well-being. Or we can get back to homeostasis and actually kind of get back to where we were before, and kind of work back to that level. However, one thing we do try to look for as well is maybe signs of what we think about as resilient growth. So the idea of building resilience from the negative experiences or the adverse and challenging experiences that we have. So the idea is that even with COVID and with other really extreme stressors, what we can do is build additional protective factors. So we can take on new skills in order to respond to that stress, in order to enhance our well-being, which then actually help us to respond perhaps even better in future situations and future challenges. So it's resilient growth, or some people refer to it as kind of post-traumatic growth if you experience a trauma, that in a way you're building skills to actually make yourself stronger moving forward and kind of creating meaning from that. So that is what kind of brings it back to our session today in terms of trying to create meaning and enhance positivity in our life, even when there's these major stressors. All right, I'll let one of you guys take over with the spirals of emotion, so I'm not the one just talking the whole time. Go for it, Namik.
Sure. So when we talk about spirals of emotions, we talk about how emotions can basically drive themselves, and how they can basically, if we experience an emotion, they can move us toward behaviors or other actions that can then either promote that negative emotion or that positive emotion in and of itself. So emotions can drive themselves in and of themselves. So as far as, for example, negative emotions go, typically when one is experiencing a negative emotion, what can happen is that our attention can really narrow, and we can become so focused on that negative emotion in and of itself, or the things that led to that negative emotion, such as potential threats or losses or other obstacles in our life. And then it can also lead us to focus on very much negative aspects of oneself. So how might have potentially things that are inherent to us have led to either those losses or those obstacles, or why we might be experiencing or anticipating those threats. That can also then lead us to feeling overwhelmed by all of these things that we're thinking about in the moment, or how intense those emotions are, and also lead us to feel pessimistic about things improving or about the future. And in those moments, it is quite natural to want to avoid the situation altogether, or to withdraw from that situation altogether, and even isolate. And even in the short term, those kinds of things can actually reduce how overwhelming those negative emotions are, and actually can be very helpful. However, when we engage in avoidance or withdrawal or isolation, we become also withdrawn and isolated from the positive things in our environment, and that can lead to overall loss of interest or enjoyment or just other opportunities for positive emotions. And then that may lead us to feel depressed or other negative emotions such as irritability or anger related to these kinds of things. And so a negative emotion that starts in and of itself can just perpetuate and lead to other negative emotions. Again, for positive emotions, it is a separate process, but it can also but it's similar in a way that it's also a spiral. So when we experience a positive emotion, we may broaden our thinking. We may become more flexible in how we problem solve. We may feel more a little bit upbeat. And so look for opportunities to improve our situation. And so we may then improve the ways we cope and respond to stressors. Overall, this may lead to improved health, and how then we approach other situations in our life. So we may approach them with openness and exploration. And from that attitude, really, we may then engage in other activities that are pleasurable or meaningful to us. And that may lead to meeting new people or strengthening old relationships, or in simply experiencing more positive emotions, which over time can lead to well-being. So sort of to really sum up is how we respond both cognitively and behaviorally to emotions can really lead to how we continue to feel and to future emotions. And so in this session, we really are going to focus on seeking out and setting up ways to increase positive emotions in order for those positive emotions to further lead to additional positive emotions. And so instead of focusing on the negative emotions, we're going to focus on opportunities for positive emotions and how to perpetuate those feelings.
And one of the points with this is that, you know, these are separate separate spirals, separate cycles. So even when we have a lot of negative emotions, which in as a healthcare worker during a pandemic, it's going to be very expected and natural and perhaps unavoidable to have negative emotions and high levels of stress. But the point at which we, you know, that these are separate spirals. So even when there's negative emotions there, we can try to enhance the positive emotions. It's not ignoring the negative. It's not saying it's not there. It's not just putting on rose-colored glasses. It's accepting and letting the negative emotions be there while simultaneously trying to enhance that positive spiral. And the nice thing is sometimes, you know, enhancing that positive spiral kind of takes space back a little bit from that negative spiral. So a little bit more of that space in your head is taken over a little bit by the positive spiral instead of the other way around. Yeah.
So now we have a video that we would like to show you. Okay, so it's a way for us to really kind of think about different ways and ideas of enhancing the positive cycle or the spiral. And so the video may not feel 100% or directly related to our current situation, but it goes over some really good ideas on how to increase happiness or contentment. And so we're going to go ahead and play it for you.
Know that we do not endorse any of the companies that we are showing videos for. We more use this because it does a really good job kind of overviewing some of the specific ways in which we can enhance positive emotion. We definitely didn't do it to endorse any of the specific companies that played a role in creating the video. But the first step would be just to brainstorm the different ways in which we can enhance our positive emotions. And I think The number one thing here is to recognize that it's individual for everyone. So even though there's some things from research to show that a lot of these different things can increase positive emotions for us, for different people, different things are going to really be most powerful for us. So it's identifying the things that are most powerful for you. And that might mean trying several different things to see what's most powerful for you. And then I think the video suggested it, and we'll talk about this later too, but it's trying something, finding what works, using it, and then mixing it up. Because if you use something over and over and over again in the exact same way, it loses its oomph. So you got to kind of mix it up after you do find something that works. Yeah, we continue on to the, so when you guys want to take over Savor the Moment, what that looks like? Kara?
Okay. So we're just going to go over, like, to kind of help you brainstorm a few of the different kind of categories or different ways to increase those positive emotions. And Namik, if you just want to put all of them up, that might be. So one thing I really like about Savor the Moment is that these are strategies you can use, and you don't really like need anything. You don't need to like necessarily go out and do anything or have any specific resources or money. It's just kind of amplifying things that might already be happening to you. So this is a way to kind of, we call it like turn up the volume on a positive event, which in turn might sort of turn the volume down on other negative thoughts or feelings that are kind of jumping into your mind. But just some ways that you can do this, as you can see on the screen, would be journaling. So journaling, like once a week, take a day and journal every positive event that happened today. So this could be big things, like a really big positive life event, or it could be something small, like I had a nice walk with my dog this morning. Just anything that was sort of positive to really focus and savor it. Another one is just like, while a positive moment is happening, to really focus your attention fully on it. So say you go home and you really enjoy cooking dinner. So this is, instead of, you know, having the TV on and talking on the phone and doing all these different things, it's just really focusing your attention on what you're doing while that positive moment is happening. If nothing is going on currently, you can also focus on past or future positive events vividly. So the video mentioned and had like a drawing of someone's child, baby being born. So like imagining some really positive things that happen to you, imagining future things that you anticipate happening. So this might be a really good one with COVID, when a lot of those positive experiences that used to happen may not be happening as much. There are things that you're looking forward to, you know, when a vaccine comes out, I'm going on vacation with my family or whatever, or even just something small, like I'm gonna have dinner with my partner when I get home, things to look forward to. And then the last example we have here is similar to the journaling, so like writing about it or just imagining it. Or also, one that Asma mentioned is like telling someone about it. So calling your mom and telling her about something positive that happened today. Sometimes that can be kind of a double hit to savor the moment, because you're also making a social connection as well.
And just to reiterate something that Kara said of, you know, even the small things, right? So even the being outside for a few minutes and noticing the feel of the sun on your skin. You know, or you walk past someone and they smile and wave at you, even though you don't know them. Just the very tiniest, smallest thing, you know, having a drink that you really like and savoring the taste of that and really focusing on it. So even on days where it might seem like there's nothing but negative piling up, there's going to be something positive in there. There's always something positive that you can focus on and savor and remind yourself of and be thankful for. And so I think, you know, that's really important kind of when you're trying to save the moment and focus on the positive, is to not let go of those small things, because they can be super powerful sometimes.
Yeah.
Namik, do you want to take this one?
So when we are experiencing stress and stressful events or negative events, it's normal and adaptive for us to focus on what's going on or very much on ourselves. And this is really for the purpose of trying to figure out what is happening, why things are happening, and how might we be able to cope with the situation. And so often our minds focus inward and try to figure all of these things out. And this is actually very helpful because it can help us problem solve and identify what is going on, how we're feeling, and how to respond. However, when we do it for either too long or too much of it, we can become really stuck in this process of focused on inward things. And this over time can lead to us withdrawing or isolating from our environments. And as we talked about earlier, with the negative emotion spiral to even more negative mood. And so, we can try to focus then on outside of ourselves and focus on other things that are in our environment. So some things that we can kind of think about doing is focusing on making one specific person happier. And so being nice to others, or really kind of spending some time thinking about what is it that we can do to make someone else's day. And these could be very small things we do or even big gestures. It will really be individual for us to pick what that is or who that person is. We can also pick a time of the day or a day and focus on things that we are grateful for that day. Lots of folks like to do this at the end of the day, where they go through their day and think about the things that they're grateful for. This could be your job, your family, your health, a recent vacation you went on, the house you live in, your pets, whatever might come up for you. And then another thing that we sometimes think about, again, is focusing on outside of ourselves, is picking a day to do 3 acts of kindness we usually wouldn't do. And so this can be very simple, as things as picking up a piece of trash that we come across, or holding a door for somebody, or complimenting someone on the work that they've done, or whatever might, again, come up. And another thing is writing a gratitude letter to someone. This can be very powerful, like the video suggested, in helping us experience positive emotions and happiness, and it will also be really good for someone else, right? So receiving a letter of gratitude would be a very much a positive emotion and a positive experience. So it's basically a sort of a twofer for us. Anything else?
I know oh, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say, just as healthcare workers too, or kind of being in this industry, sometimes it might feel like you're doing nothing but doing things for other people. And so, one thing to point out with that is that, like, if we are doing, something where we're, it's part of our job and we're doing this day in, day out, it starts to maybe feel burdensome, and it feels like not necessarily something that's our choice. So what we're talking about here is identifying things that you're not already doing, and that you're being very purposeful and kind of choosing to do these things, right? So, even if it's at work, you're picking someone specific to try to make happy and to try to identify the little things throughout the week that you could make their life easier. That might be a coworker, it might be a specific patient, but then it's something outside of the ordinary, above and beyond what you would usually do, something different, so it's kind of mixing it up, and it's doing something a little bit different. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you guys would say about that, because I do think that's something I've heard from other people when they go to implement this, is like, well, I feel like I'm doing things for people all the time, and you're saying that if I do more for people, other people, it's going to make me happier, of kind of different ways you guys might think of it.
I mean, I think of it in terms of stepping outside of our regular roles or what our job is. And so for healthcare workers, it's sort of it's in the job description to take care of others and do for others. And I think this can also happen. While this can happen at work, this can also be happening outside of work. And it's a choice really to do it, and to do it not out of obligation or out of a duty, but out of a sense of doing something nice for someone. And so it might be a little bit vague, I guess, or broad, but these are not necessarily huge gestures. They can be very small, tiny fragments of kindness that one does for the day, but does it with intention. and paying attention to that and really noticing what it feels like when we do something small that's kind for another person, and how rewarding that might feel and how that might make us feel, and really savoring that. So I think that's the point, is to really pay attention to that. And if it becomes habitual, and even if it's part of your day, that's okay. Again, just noticing that and savoring it. All right, we can move on.
Yeah. So, so I'll take this one on. So we have on screen social distancing, but crossing it out and thinking about social connecting instead. Obviously this is something, we know that social connections seem to be incredibly important for humans in general in terms of optimizing our well-being. And so this is something COVID has definitely disrupted in terms of our ability to socially connect. And so we've got to be more creative about maybe how we go about doing this. But this, and again, like we've said before, this is not necessarily about huge things, right? This is identifying small things, but in creative ways, perhaps, in which we can connect in meaningful ways with other people. So this might be identifying small ways throughout the day. So, I think all of us in our jobs, or even in our regular days, we can kind of get into routines where we're not really paying attention to the people around us as much. So, even, waving to people that you would usually just walk on by, or sharing something about yourself, even just small with someone, can make you feel a little bit more connected to those around you, rather than just kind of walking through automatically your day. But also identifying other ways to, connect. So obviously video conferencing and calling, a lot of us have gotten very used to Zooming with other people. So making that kind of a regular part of our lives, because I think there might be something unique if we're able to get face-to-face with someone, even if it's over a computer. But also joining groups. There's a lot of online groups where we can connect with other people that might have similar interests. The perhaps positive thing is that this pandemic is happening at a time when we have a lot of technology that can help us connect in meaningful ways with each other. So yeah, Kara or Namik, do you have anything to add on the social connections? We do have a whole other session focused to healthy connections, because this is such an important one, we know, to people's well-being. So we'll have a whole nother session focused on that. But anything to add?
And yeah, I was just going to say, in addition to that, we review specific ways of increasing our social connecting, and how to identify folks who might be supportive, or who might be sources of support for us, and how to go about reaching out and connect with them, but also how to sort of be a good friend as well, how to be a giving person as well through social connections. So we have a specific set of skills that we go over that. So
it's good to end with the do more of what makes you happy. Namik, do you want to?
I think this is very important. Sort of like structuring our lives in a ways that we want to do more, that increases those positive emotions that make us happy. And so even though our routines have been disrupted, even though our lives have potentially really changed as a result of this pandemic, we have parts of our previous routines that are still present. And so something simple as sleeping and eating regularly, and that can be very powerful, just sticking to the things that we know work for us, or that create a routine and a sense of stability for us. Again, with not being able to travel and do big vacations necessarily, or get together for happy hour parties with our friends or whatever else, we can again find pleasure and happiness in small moments, such as everything from taking a bath, relaxing on the couch and watching TV, or taking a break at work in a relaxing location. So here at St. Francis, for example, even just going for a small walk around the pond can be very, it can increase positive emotions, or taking a moment and taking a break just to have some coffee or tea. Being outdoors is still available for us, and so going for walks or hiking or working in our yard or other house projects. You might have been wanting to paint a room for a while now, and so you might engage in that. And then you also create activities like knitting or doodling and listening to music, dancing by yourself or with your family members, cooking together, doing things or learning new creative skills or other skills that, again, will result in those positive emotions that you either know of or you've thought about that it might be fun to do, and just trying them and engaging with them.
And this is where I think, that we all have to identify the things that work for us and then purposely engage in them, and not see them as just indulging, but seeing them as incredibly important to our well-being, to make sure we're engaging in them, in terms of, just kind of revealing, I guess, about myself, but like the outdoor activities for me have been key. My kids and I go for a hike every single weekend now, and that's become kind of a staple for me, that I know it enhances my positive emotions at a time where there's a lot of other activities I can't necessarily do. I've added whipped cream to my coffee every morning because that's something that I absolutely love, that I was trying to cut out for health reasons before, but it really brings me joy. So it's kind of come back. So I think, just kind of finding even those little positive things in your day that kind of enhance positive emotions. And like we talked about the spiral that Namik was talking about, that's what we talk, that's why we talk about the little small things, because you notice the spiral starts out really small, right? But if you get it going, it kind of can have a domino effect and kind of increase and, create more motivation for other positive activities, and then more positive social interactions, and it ends up cycling into to take up more space. So even the small things.
To experiment and try things out and see how they work for you. So if you were choosing to incorporate something as part of your day and routine, see how that makes you feel. How does it make you feel in the moment, but what effect does it have on your day? And then, using that to experiment and decide whether this is something you want to keep, occasionally try, or never do again. So really sort of, again, it kind of comes back to paying attention to these experiences and noticing what is happening. And we have a whole session on mindfulness and paying attention to our experiences, but this is sort of where this can become very helpful in letting us decide how to structure our lives to experience more positive emotions.
Kerr, you want to lead us through making it happen?
Oh, sure. All right. So this is where the homework quote part comes in, not necessarily homework. So we've gone over like a lot of different ideas and things for you to brainstorm, but we just want you to kind of think of one thing out of all that we've talked about today that you associate with positive emotions, that's in line with your values or strengths, just something that might have stood out to you as we were going over all these different things. Just focus on one for now, start small, and think about what day over the next week you'll be able to do that activity. So kind of be realistic here. If you've got a really long work shift, maybe don't schedule it on that day, schedule it at a time whenever you think it's going to be most likely to happen. And then also pick kind of the time, or like I'm going to be doing it after dinner, kind of a general time of the day. And then go ahead and Namik, if you want to hit the next thing, I think maybe, yeah. So you could just jot this down somewhere, or maybe put a note in your phone, but the day and time that you're going to do it, what activity you're going to do. And then this is so kind of going back to what Namik was just talking about, where you monitor sort of how it affects your mood. So you can write down your mood before and how intense it is on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being like the most. So this person, I wrote down Tuesday 4 p.m. They did the savoring a positive moment by sharing it with a friend. And before they did it, they noted down that the mood felt defeated, frustrated, and satisfied. And then afterwards, they still had these same emotions, but they'd gone down a little bit in intensity. So it might be that your negative emotions go down. It might be that positive emotions go up, or it could be that maybe you decided to go play the piano that you haven't played in 10 years and your frustration actually increases. And maybe you can either decide you're going to stick with it, or maybe try something else next time. So this can be helpful to really see what activities tend to increase those positive emotions, and just kind of keep track. So maybe try doing this like once a week, trying to schedule. It could be the same day and time every week, or it could be different. But just keeping track so you can see how it affects your mood. there
And I
anything
think
on
well,
that?
that's great. I just wanted to reiterate that this is probably, I mean, I think with all these sessions, the most important thing is these like last slides where we're talking about like, okay, how do you actually put this into place? Because, you know, we can sit and chat about this all day, but it's not necessarily going to help unless you actually schedule it into your day and make it happen. And that's the hard part. The hard part is actually like scheduling it, purposely thinking about doing it, making it happen, and then recording how that worked, and try it out again. Because if we just vaguely have something in our minds of like, oh yeah, I'll try to do more acts of kindness for people, it's much more unlikely to happen than if we identify, no, you know what, on Friday of this week, I'm going to pay for someone else's, you know, food in a drive-through, and I'm going to wave at someone I've never waved at before, and I'm going to leave a thank you note for the postal service guy, you know, that comes by or something, you know, and identifying specifically what are the behaviors you're going to do, when are you going to do them, and then recording it when you do it. I think the importance of that cannot be understated. Because usually the scheduling is what makes it actually happen. The other thing I noticed on this slide that we actually didn't cover very much in the last few slides was the values idea. So, you know, identifying positive things that are in line with our values can often be the most powerful positive events and positive activities. So, you know, if we really highly value animals, for example, you know, spending more time with our animals might be something, or taking care or volunteering, you know, you know, for a rescue association or a rescue organization, might be much more powerful perhaps than maybe social connections for some people. Others for whom their family is of, you know, utmost importance to them right now in their life, you know, focusing on making someone in their family happy might be, you know, one of the most powerful things they can do. So oftentimes, if you identify the things that are really important to you, your values, or if you identify the things you're really, really good at, your strengths, and you make use of those, a lot of times those can be some of the most powerful kind of positive activities to focus on at first.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is that sometimes, you know, in addition to scheduling these things, is that idea of social accountability. So sharing with others that we're doing some of these things together, whether it's a random act of kindness, or you're scheduling to do something like that, letting others know, so that they can also follow up with you that you were, you know, whether you did this and how it went and how it made you feel, but especially if you're setting up specific activities that may result in positive emotions. Sharing with others can really be powerful in helping us do them and then continue to do them. This is our last.
So yeah, go ahead, Dominic.
You know, there are other sessions in this program that we have created. We are also recording these sessions, and we'll be posting them to various platforms where you'll be able to access them and view them. And so these include managing negative reactions with mindfulness and using mindfulness to, you know, pay attention and savor moments. We also mentioned that we'll have a whole session on healthy connections during COVID. We also have a session on how to manage upsetting thoughts that might come up for us. And then finally, also a problem-solving session to help us enhance resilience. And while all of these sessions are focused and centered around the current pandemic, all of these skills are very much transferable to other areas of our life or to other situations. And so they can be used even after this pandemic has passed, and also can be taught to others. So yeah, that's all.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming in to anyone who is still on, since we can't tell if there's attendees or not. But please look out for the, you know, links to the other sessions, and thanks for coming. Contact us if you have any questions at all. So if you want kind of a quick follow-up or just have questions on any of the skills that we're talking about, or any kind of referrals for more information or anything, please don't hesitate to reach out.